Wait, what about weird? Hi, I'm Elena.
And I'm Echo.
And this is our podcast, What About Weird? A podcast discussing all things weird from cryptids and aliens to strange science and unhinged history. Do you want to tell the people why we may have bad audio quality?
Oh, yeah.
Because we're goofy.
Oh my god, okay. So, we're on a road trip to Chicago, which is obviously a city. So, no matter where we stay here, we're probably gonna have a lot of background noise. Except I quite possibly got us one of the noisiest Airbnbs ever, knowing that we were going to have to record several podcast episodes while we were here. Because we do all of our, we do a month's worth of episodes all in one go because we don't really have time to meet every single week.
And then we'd have to keep resetting up.
Yeah, exactly. And so I booked us
a Airbnb. Nice, quiet Airbnb.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is every person that stayed at this Airbnb was like, this place is so wonderful and quiet, but we're right next to the train. And, and I'm kidding you not, directly fucking next to it, that, the house shakes a little bit when the train comes through. So it's quite literally just going to be every 10, 15 minutes in the episode, you're going to hear
They are also doing road work half a block away from us. And they've been on and off it. And it'll get loud and then quiet and then loud. And also, I was a goofy goober and I left the clamp for my mic at home, and we have jerry-rigged the most insane mic stand possible, and it rattles. Do you want to describe to the people what this hell creation we've made is?
So, the mic is one of those, Blue Yeti microphones, and the cord comes out of the bottom of it. And so we've stuck the microphone in a cup so that it could sit on a flat surface. But then since the cable comes out of the bottom, you can't really just set that cup down on the table. Otherwise you're crunching the cable and it's not going to sit quite right. So what we've done is we cut this to-go Pepsi cup to sit the mic in, and then the cord comes out a hole that we've cut in the bottom, and then we've placed that inside an Arizona tea thing.
With the top cut off and a hole in the side.
Yeah, and the hole in the side is so that the cord for the microphone can run out the side. And you know what? It works. It rattles sometimes, so we got to be extra careful not to hit the table, but it works.
If it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid, but I don't think that applies to this situation.
It's stupid and it works.
Just like me. Okay, shall I go ahead and dive right in?
Yeah, go for it.
So there was a time in the early part of the last century when many Kentuckians, we did agree they were Kentuckians, right? In the Hopkins fried chickens?
We decided they were fried chickens.
Right. There's a part in the last century when a lot of fried chickens were in the midst of a war. I think it's like Mad Libs.
It's like Mad Libs.
They're in the midst of a war of sorts. Everyone wanted some of the land, not for farming or for mining, but for the caves. Cave tourism was a booming economy at the time, and many people were eager to venture into the depths of the earth to see what hidden wonders it held. And South Central Kentucky was the land of opportunity for cave entrepreneurs. The land was peppered with cave entrances and cave fever. And this cave fever is more often known as the Kentucky Cave Wars. So that is what we're going to be talking about today.
They're so interesting. The Cave Wars are so interesting.
How much do you know? Because I know we just went to Mammoth Caves on the way here. So you learned a little bit about it there.
And I've been to Mammoth Caves, and I had a tour where they explained a whole bunch about the Cave Wars previously. But my memory retention is not great.
And we didn't get to do our tour.
Yeah, because the government shut down.
Yeah. So we just walked through the museum and asked the rangers a few things.
As much as I would have liked to see the caves, maybe it was a blessing in disguise, because otherwise this whole episode I probably would have known exactly what Elena was going to say. And my next episode was also about Mammoth Caves, and she would have been like, fucking snore, the park rangers told me all about this already.
Yeah. And I was actually there. I got to see these things. Whatever. You don't have visual aids. I don't care. So you know a little bit about, I don't know how many other people know about this, but this
Unless you go tour the caves, probably nothing, unless you maybe live in the area.
So this is, the Kentucky Cave Wars is sort of the story of cave tourism in the area and how Mammoth Caves National Park, like, came to be on the people side of things.
Right.
And you are going to be doing an episode on how Mammoth Caves came to be in the science side of things.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So it's long been known that the area now encompassed by Mammoth Cave National Park, I just wrote Mammoth Cave National. Mammoth Cave National Park was full of caves. Indigenous people in the area had been using the caves for thousands of years, and settlers had been using the caves to mine saltpeter, which is a key ingredient in gunpowder, fertilizer, and some medicines at the time. But it wasn't until... There's the train. Do we just wait or just plow through it?
I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's picking up the train audio.
Okay.
We might be okay.
Hell yeah.
Actually,
okay.
I have no idea. We may go back and listen. It'll be like faint choo-choos, but...
Faint choo-choos. Ominous faint choo-choos.
This is the ghost train.
Oh, no. The ghost trains followed us from North Carolina to here. So it wasn't until mining operations ceased and the first official known cave tour took place in 1816. So that's a lot earlier than the main chunk of our story starts, but you need to know some of this history of why people were interested in the caves to know why the cave wars sort of happened. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to speed run a little bit of history here for you. In the 1930s, Reverend George S. Gatewood held services in what is now the historic entrance to Mammoth Caves. These services were very popular, particularly in the hot summer of Kentucky, when it was really nice and cold in there, and it felt almost like how it does to have AC now. Mm-hmm. And also was such a novelty to have service in a cave. You know, it's not just your regular wooden church.
Yeah.
Or like tent revival type.
And living in Kentucky, just the AC part had to be such a huge draw for people. Like, it's actually cool down here.
Yeah. Well, that's why he got so many people going there. And it really brought awareness to the cave, to that specific cave. And around that time, a cave explorer and surveyor named Edmund F. Lee surveyed about 8 miles of Mammoth Caves and published his findings in his guidebook, Notes on Mammoth Cave.
Do we know why they called it Mammoth? Just because it was so fucking big?
Yeah, because it's fucking huge.
Okay.
And because a lot of other caves hadn't been explored that far or weren't, like, that big.
And they didn't know the Megalodon existed yet, so otherwise they would have called it Megalodon Caves or something.
Probably, yeah.
Whatever large thing.
And as time went on, more and more, like, we'll get into it, but more and more, like, caves are discovered. And this is still all pre-Civil War that they've discovered, like, 8 miles of caves. We're going to get into someone who discovered even more of the caves. So, in 1838, an enslaved man by the name of Stephen Bishop came to be known as one of Mammoth Cave's most notable tour guides. And it was a fledgling attraction, but it was really becoming popular among tourists and curiosity seekers, and even academics were fascinated by all of the science and the geology among it and stuff. When the property was purchased by a man named Franklin Gorin, I keep wanting to say Gordon, it's Gorin, Gorin. Bishop was stationed at the cave as a guide to help bring people through. So he was the sort of like, well, your job is cave tour. And in addition to just the guiding part of the known routes, he also joined a lot of explorations with finding new passages in the caves, new passages to to take tours through and stuff. Bishop started guiding as a teenager and really quickly absorbed all the information and the stories from the other guides. Gordon would later say that Bishop was very intelligent, had a good sense of humor that he'd show off during tours. So he was very personable. He'd share all this information, sort of tell jokes and stuff with it. It was like a fun, not only an informative tour, but a fun tour for people. At one point, Gordon called him, and I quote, a talent of the first order, saying that Bishop was very eager to learn and explore as much as he could of the caves. Bishop is often credited as the most prolific cave explorer and geologist in the area at the time, even though he was enslaved at the time.
That's so crazy. Do you think he actually wanted to do this stuff, or do you think he kind of felt like he had to? Because that's where the person that owned him basically lived and what he was doing?
So from what I was reading, take this with a grain of salt because most of the sources are coming from white people.
Yeah, exactly.
But there were a lot of sources that came from his wife after he was freed towards the end of his life. And his wife was telling people it really did seem like he loved doing this and he was really eager to learn stuff and would in what little free time he had, he would also go and explore the caves and learn about the rocks and the minerals and all that stuff.
That's good at least. So at least he enjoyed what he was doing.
Yeah.
Even though being enslaved is fucking stupid and horrible in literally all aspects.
This, a lot of the history, the early part of the history is well, this guy was enslaved and he did cave tours, and this person was enslaved and they were a cave. It's we didn't want to send the white people in, so we'll send the enslaved people in case they fall into the bottomless pit.
Exactly. We're going to make them initially map it out and do all the dangerous stuff. And then when they map it out, then we'll go explore and they can give tours and shit and we'll capitalize off of their exploration.
Yeah, I'll get into it later, but for the longest time, Bishop was the person who had mapped the most of the cave.
That's crazy.
And the first 80 years of Mammoth Cave history is we're gonna send the slaves the enslaved people in first.
Jesus.
And then the last 20, 30 years is now the white men own the land and we're going to make money off of it. So Bishop named many of the features that you see now in the caves. If you take a cave tour at Mammoth Caves, some of his more notable discoveries are the bottomless pit.
Yeah,
and
I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my episode.
Yeah. Oh, it's the vast majority of, especially the beginning parts, is all stuff that Bishop has named. I could be wrong on this, but from what I was reading, the guy that mapped it, Edmund F. Lee, who surveyed it, he didn't really name things. He was just drawing maps of it. And Bishop was the one who was naming things.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool that he got to name it.
Mm-hmm. And he also he made a map, and he marked a lot of connecting points to other caves that remained unverified for the longest time. And some of them it wasn't even until the 1950s that they were able to verify them. So that's
Jeez.
Well over 100 years after.
Yeah, 100. That's crazy.
That he had marked, but people didn't go that far or couldn't figure out where it was or couldn't find the other cave that it connected to. And he's this definitely connects to another cave. I just haven't gone far enough to figure out where it spits you out.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, Cavers, Caves, and Caving, author Harold Melody states that a Pittsburgh millionaire was visiting Mammoth Caves in 1878, about 20 years after Bishop had passed. And he heard stories about Bishop and so wanted to go meet his wife and talk to his wife, Charlotte, who was managing a hotel dining room at the time. And she led him to Bishop's gravesite, which was only marked by a tree. And
oh, that's sad.
Yeah, and this millionaire was well, this guy seems really important. I'm going to get you a gravestone for him.
Yeah, arguably one of the most, if not the most important fucking person so far.
Yeah.
Come on now.
And about 3 years later, he arranged for a carver to get a second-hand tombstone, which
What?
How do you get
Second-hand tombstone? Because that first person's going to be using it forever because that's what happens with tombstones.
So I was curious about that, and what it said was that it was a tombstone that had been made for a Civil War soldier's family, but the family just never paid for it.
Oh, that's sad that they didn't get their tombstone just because they couldn't pay for it, though.
Yeah, so this guy paid for that.
Sucks.
And it's also kind of sucky that he was like, I'm going to get a second-hand tombstone, not make one from the start.
Yeah, especially because this guy's a millionaire. God,
but at least he's getting a tombstone, though.
Like, yes, good that he did it. A little goofy that he couldn't just get the man a new tombstone.
Yeah,
though.
but they carved the name off of... They carved the original name off of this gravestone and replaced it with an engraving for Bishop. And so at first glance, this does look like a Civil War gravestone because it is, even though he was not a Civil War veteran. So the gravestone reads, Stephen Bishop, first guide and explorer of Mammoth Caves, died June 15th, 1859 in his 37th year. Well, there is a little bit of conjecture on when he died because the tombstone says one thing, but then all the other records say that it was 1857.
Mm-hmm.
It is widely agreed on that it's 1857 and it was just a miscarve, probably because they were carving it
right
well after he had died.
Yeah, okay.
And so this gravestone now rests in the Old Guides Cemetery in Mammoth Caves. Not in the caves, but in the park.
Right, okay.
So with additional improvements of hotels in the area, more and more people began to flock to see what the caverns had. In 1850, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who I don't think I need to explain who that is. I think we all know. If you don't, look him up.
Yeah, really. Google search will do.
But he had wrote 2 books where he mentioned Mammoth Caves after he had visited, and that really sparked the popularity of Mammoth Caves. However, the Civil War would put cave tourism on the back burner. After the war, it would slowly come back, sort of creep back. There were a couple of notable people visiting here and there. Like, at one point, a Russian dignitary visited. It was like the Grand Duke of Russia or something. And then that brought some attention to it. And then at one point, the Jesse James gang robbed a train that was going over Mammoth Caves.
That's actually really funny.
But it wasn't until 1891 when Francis Benjamin Johnston would take flashbulb photography of the cave and publish them in a magazine that tourism would explode. For the first time, people could see the wonders of the cave, and they just couldn't wait to see them for themselves in person. When Johnston arrived in Mammoth Caves, she was 2 years into her career as a photojournalist, and this was still in the very, very early days of professional photography and photojournalism. So there weren't very many men doing photojournalism, much less like any women, and she was one of the first. Well, she's very fascinating in her own right. I'm just going to briefly talk about what she has to do with Mammoth Caves. So her and Johnston and Johnston's mother, who was also a journalist, just not a photojournalist, took a trip to Mammoth Caves to document it, and they were doing this for I don't even know what that word is. They were doing it for a magazine. I'm not going to bother trying to say the magazine name.
Probably doesn't exist anymore anyway.
Probably. It looks like a name that wouldn't exist. Well, they were no strangers to challenges. They both spent about 3 weeks making many trips that were often fruitless. The photos didn't come out right. Things didn't come out well. It was very tiring. And they were making all these trips into the caves. And they were hauling all of this old-timey photography equipment in, and with the help of the guide and her mother, they're going in and out for 3 weeks, and they're developing a whole bunch of techniques because nobody had ever photographed the inside of a cave.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had, it hadn't come out very well. And you can look up her photography, and it is like really good. And she's she's finding ways to get as bright as possible to photograph all of the geological structures, like the stalactites, the stalagmites, the gypsum formations. And
so cool. Because I bet people at this time were like, holy fucking shit, I've never
and
seen
this is
anything
pre
like this.
Ansel Adams.
That's amazing.
So she was starting to run out of, like, the flash powder she was using, so she'd put a little bit of it in a ball of paper and then use that to save on flash powder, which is really cool.
Huh.
So she used, like, a fraction of the flash powder
That's
to get all of these pictures, which is crazy.
So she was, like, innovative as well.
Yeah. And she often described it as vanquishing the arch enemy darkness. Her article, Mammoth Cave by Flashlight, would become a huge success, and it would feature 25 pictures, and they were highly prized. Like I said, you can look them up. They are just absolutely fascinating and surprisingly good quality. Like, you wouldn't expect them to be as good quality as they are. And we have her to thank for not just the documentation of a lot of things in Mammoth Caves, but she documented a lot of other stuff that would have just fallen to the wayside and we wouldn't have known about. Like, one of her previous articles that she had done was documenting how money was made when it was still hand printed.
Oh,
before that started
cool.
going out of fashion. Like, there's a giant explosion in Chicago she documented the pictures on and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And with these photos, there's a huge uptick in the popularity of cave tours. And as more people flock to the area, more people want a piece of this proverbial pie. They wanted their money. You know, they wanted to figure out however they could make the money from it.
Right.
And because somebody already owned Mammoth Caves, everybody was looking for something on the way to Mammoth Caves.
Right,
Because
like,
Mammoth Cave was the famous one.
Right, because there are other caves in the area. Like, technically it's all one cave system, but there
they
are
didn't
still, like,
know
different
that. For
caves. Yeah.
A lot of this they didn't know. Like I'd mentioned when we were talking about Stephen Bishop, is a lot of this stuff wouldn't be confirmed until, like, the 50s or 60s.
Right.
It was, you know, on the way to Mammoth Cave, maybe you would pass, like, Onyx Cave or...
There's, like, the sand caves.
Yeah, we'll talk about
cave.
sand and crystal caves later on, but stuff like that you'd pass. And so a lot of people wanted more and more, like, wanted some of the cave stuff. But the crown jewel that everyone was looking for was a quote-unquote back entrance to Mammoth Caves, to find another entrance. Because if you could find an entrance to connect to Mammoth Caves, you had a piece of, like, the infamous cave. Because the entrance was on someone else's property, if you could find an entrance on your property, you wouldn't be breaking any laws.
Right,
You just had to confirm that it was on that, you know. And if you're underground, well, I didn't know where the property lines were.
That's crazy.
So this is what brings us to the cave wars proper. In the early 1900s, a man by the name of Ed Hawkins started working in the Mammoth Cave area. And while many African American workers had a lot of restrictions, most of them were doing jobs out of sight, so like kitchen jobs, housekeeping, stuff like that. But a lot of the white workers were given more like face of the tour industry type jobs. They were clerks, they were tour guides, all this stuff. But somehow Hawkins managed to get to be a tour guide and a cave explorer, which he really liked. He really thrived at this. Unfortunately, this wasn't without its challenges, and the tour manager would often pull him off of tour duty, especially last minute, if someone more important or influential wanted to do a cave tour so it looked, quote-unquote, more professional, and would stick him on kitchen duty.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah, and I just wanted to... He's not really a big part of the cave wars, but he was a really prolific cave explorer, and he is known for finding a lot of the domes in Mammoth Caves, especially like the biggest dome, and there's a series of domes that's even named after him.
Awesome.
But I just want to mention that like sort of this is where things started to switch from we're going to send the enslaved people in. I mean, this is well after you wouldn't have been in slavery, but it sort of is switching from we're going to have like African Americans guide the tours to we're going to make it look super professional and have the white people guide the tours. I read some fun stuff about Hawkins where he was He's really easily recognizable in pictures because he looks like he has these giant safety pins on his clothes. And it was apparently because he had giant, really big hands and couldn't work buttons and would just use blanket pins to pin his clothes shut, which I think is kind of fun.
I'm going to start doing that when I get frustrated with buttons.
Yeah, just a big old pin. Unrelated, but I did have here that he passed away in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, which we know where that's from.
Yeah.
And I had earlier, which I forgot to mention, that the photographer, Johnston, she was from Grafton, West Virginia, home of the Grafton Monster, which is kind of interesting. Different places with cryptids and stuff from all over just kept coming up in my research of this, of so-and-so was from here, so-and-so died here, whatever, which I think is kind of nifty, just like coincidence.
There's just a whole region of cryptids, but it is really weird that, like, the specific towns where those cryptids are, where these people are, like, from or died. There's been multiple connections.
Yeah. I just thought it was an interesting little tangent I wanted to mention. So the Cave Wars earned their name, and they really reached a fever pitch in 1915 when a man by the name of George D. Morrison came to the area in an effort to find oil. But while his attempts to find oil failed, he managed to change cave history forever. And so he came looking for oil, didn't find oil, left, and then got his curiosity piqued by all the caves, the people looking for caves and trying to tour caves and stuff, and was like, well, why don't I try that? The oil didn't work out. I'm going to try this cave thing. And his whole goal was to find the back entrance to Mammoth Caves. And unlike a lot of other people who were entering caves and just seeing if they could end up in Mammoth Caves, he would go into Mammoth Caves and see if he could end up somewhere else. He would illegally go into there with a small group of people to get a better understanding of the layout of the caves and to know if he ended up where he was supposed to. So this was highly illegal, but he got caught doing this and was eventually forbidden from ever entering again, was like banned from Mammoth Caves, like by law. But he did eventually find a piece of property that he was able to connect to Mammoth Caves. This was one of the first ones that was ever connected.
Yeah.
And he called this the new entrance to Mammoth Caves. It was on his own property. He wasn't on anyone else's. It was on his own property. But there was a whole battle in the courtyard, or the courtroom, over him using the name Mammoth Caves.
Right.
Because that was already owned by somebody else. That was already someone else's business, was the Mammoth Cave estate. So he eventually had to change it to just the new entrance.
That's actually kind of funny.
Which, yeah, that is, I just thought that was hilarious. There's just the new entrance.
The new entrance.
And he popped this up really, really fast after he came back. And a lot of people were really suspicious that he might be breaking into Mammoth Cave, like the main entrance to Mammoth Caves, and working his way back again, because he bought this land and then basically overnight was like, I found the new entrance to Mammoth Caves. That's suspicious. That's weird.
Yeah, that's weird. That is weird. It is giving that in his exploration, he did find a new entrance and then was like, I'm gonna buy this land.
Yeah.
Voila, I magically found this new entrance to Mammoth Caves.
I mean, I found a new entrance. To what caves? You don't know, but it's the new entrance. So, Mammoth Cave's estate, the one that had the legal battles with Morris over the new entrance. So, the new entrance, and a lot of other caves in the area were getting more and more aggressive with trying to draw tourism to them.
Uh-huh.
And so it wasn't just the looking for the caves. Finding the caves was great, but it wasn't going to do any good if you couldn't bring people. So they had cave solicitors and like big signs. These cave solicitors were often called cave cappers because they wore caps a lot. And they were hired to just line the tourists and have little booths and signs and be like, hey, come to my cave, come to this cave. We've got insert attraction here. Mm-hmm. You know, they're lining the highways and the route on the way to Mammoth Caves to draw people in. And if you couldn't afford the cave cappers or to put up a bunch of signs, you just had to have a cave that was off the road, and you could just put up one big sign like, turn now, cave here. And so that's what a lot of people would do.
Right.
And if you could get both, you were in business.
I mean, aren't there still a few caves within the Mammoth Cave system that are privately owned?
Yes. Yeah, there's certain entrances that Mammoth Caves couldn't get.
Yeah.
I think, I didn't look it up I didn't go into my research, but I think Onyx Cave isn't.
Because we saw signs for that, and I remember them being like, stop to tour, like, Onyx Cave here.
Yeah, and there's another one, there's a couple others that we passed that were privately owned caves and stuff. That's that same sort of a thing.
Right, where, like, there's signs everywhere on your way to Mammoth Cave saying, hey, you should check out our cave.
Yeah, and a lot of them are now owned by Mammoth Caves. And there's a lot of, like, signs that are, instead of come to Mammoth Caves, it's like, come do our attraction over here.
Yeah.
So you'll be on the way to Mammoth Caves and you'll pass, like, do this mining. Over here, we have a zip line. Kentucky Down Under. It's, like, random, not cave-related stuff because...
Dinosaur Adventure Park.
Yeah, what was it that we saw? Haunted Dino Land or whatever, since it was, like, October. Unfortunately, the Collins family that were the owners of the Great Crystal Caves, which you had just mentioned, their business could not afford to have the cave cappers, and they were not on the side of the road. They're sort of off the beaten path, and one of the sons of the family, William Floyd Collins, more often known as just Floyd Collins, had an idea to try and figure out how to get people to his family's cave. He had discovered crystal caves in 1917 beneath his father's farmland, but...
And at least that's respectable. Like, they didn't just buy land and be like, I'm going to set up here for cave tourism. It was already their farmland, and he happened to find a cave there.
Of a lot of the white people, he's probably one of the least scummy.
Yeah.
He was trying to figure out if he could maybe find another cave closer to the road people could tour that, and then as they're leaving, they could be like, hey, also check out our cave. So he's looking for this cave, and he finds another potential cave located on the property of Beasley Doyle. This cave is now known as Sand Cave, which is another one that you had mentioned. And it's so called because of all the sandstone. It had prime real estate. It was right by the main road into Mammoth Caves. Travelers would easily see it and stop by. The only problem was it wasn't on his land. Luckily, he knew Doyle and was able to enter into an agreement with him that they would share the profits from Sand Caves. So it was, they made an agreement, and it wasn't like, I scouted a property here or scouted a cave here, and now I'm buying your property.
Yeah. Or I'm just illegally going into your cave and doing whatever I want.
Like the other guy.
Yeah.
But before they could open it up for tourism, Collins had to go and explore it. Collins, from a young age, was really into cave exploring and was sort of fascinated, was a bit of an amateur geologist. And so he'd been exploring caves for a long time, and he decided, okay, well, I'm just going to go into this cave. So he entered to explore sand caves, entered in on January 30th of 1925, and all he had was a single kerosene lamp. Almost immediately just ran into problems. We talked about this, but what is the problem with just a single light source?
Oh my god, because if it goes out, you're fucked.
Yes.
Like, you have to have multiple.
Yes. Both of my parents are cavers and have instilled in me 3 sources of light. Like, you always have to bring at least 3 sources of light. So, it's not like he had a backup candle or anything. All he had was this kerosene lamp. And with it being a flame, if water got on it or it broke, he's screwed.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So he immediately just started running into challenges. He squeezed himself through a really tight passageway, and at one point, and eventually got stuck. He's inching through on his stomach with one arm in front of him holding his lantern and then one arm tucked underneath him.
Oh, God.
And he gets stuck. And his original thinking was that he could squeeze through, find out if it opened up, and then they could clear this so it was an easily walkable passageway. But if you can't even get through to get out to tell people, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And he's stuck there trying to wiggle himself out, and his light went out.
Fuck, dude.
And he's like, oh shit, this isn't good. He can't quite see the light out of the... like
coming from the outside?
Yeah, coming from the outside. He wasn't crazy far in, but still pretty deep. And as he's trying to wiggle his way out, he dislodged a 27-pound rock, and it smashed onto his leg, and so he's now stuck under this rock.
Yeah, he's pinned down there.
He's pinned. His foot is pinned. He's pinned in this awkward position. No light, no food. I don't know if he told anyone where he was going or, like, when to expect him back. So it's basically just, like, he's, like, in a straitjacket, a cave straitjacket.
God damn, dude.
So eventually, one of Doyle's, I had read somewhere it was Doyle's son. Some sources said it was Doyle. But eventually, someone discovered that Floyd was trapped in the cave, and immediately they're like, we gotta help this guy get out.
Yeah.
The problem is that most other people in the area weren't experienced cavers like Collins was, and they couldn't even get as far as reaching him where he was. Miners tried to reach him, more conventional means. They were sending other cavers in, and the rescue efforts would span about 17 days, trying basically everything they could. At one point, a tiny little reporter, whose name was William Burke Miller, also called Skeets Miller. Do you want to know why he's called Skeets?
Skeets. I don't know.
Because he was no bigger than Mosquito.
No way.
Because
that is so cute. That is the cutest nickname I've ever heard.
Yeah. Most of the time, if someone's named Skeet or Skeeter, I'm going to assume that it's short for mosquito because you're annoying.
Yeah.
And everyone wants you to buzz off. But I like that it's because he's just tiny. But he was able to go into the caves because he was so tiny. And he was the first person to reach Collins. And he, like, interviewed Collins and was like, what do you need? How can we help you? And he wrote a whole bunch of articles talking to him. And, like, won... I don't remember what award it was. I forgot to put it in my notes. But he won, like, a really prestigious award for this, like, interview with Collins while Collins is actively stuck in the tunnel.
Oh, that's scary, though. And sad.
Yeah. And this story really caught on, like, wildfire because the radio was new at this time. This is the first time that news was almost instant.
Right, and so everyone is, like, tuning into the
all
radio
over the world. And
this.
You could hear... You know, it wasn't just, oh, I read about this thing that happened in the newspaper a couple of days ago. It's like, oh, man, there's a man that's stuck in this cave in Kentucky. Can you believe that? So people from all over just start flocking to see, some people to help and some people just to see a spectacle.
Yeah, most people just to see a spectacle, probably.
Yeah, and a lot of articles at the time had described it as being like a carnival. There were people, like, selling hot dogs, and some people were like, oh, well, that guy's stuck in a cave, but while you're on your way to that cave, come look at my caves. We don't have someone stuck here, but we're still a cool cave, and you can look inside. Maybe you can see what he's looking at. And there were so many people that they had to send in, like, local military to, like, get people away from it because people were cramming around the caves and rescuers couldn't help Collins get out.
Right.
And eventually they were able to reach Collins via a 15-foot vertical shaft just straight down. Unfortunately, by the time they had reached Collins, he had died of exposure.
Yeah, because it's 17 days later.
Yeah.
And wasn't this around winter time?
Yeah, this is, February? January,
dude.
February?
So it's cold.
Yeah, and they weren't able to get his body out at the time, so they just sealed up sand caves with him inside. You can't tour sand caves now, from what I understand, because they have a metal grate over it. So they had left him there for a while, and then later he would be buried closer to his family in near Crystal Caves, and that was a huge tourist attraction to Crystal Caves as well. For a long time of people were like, oh, we're going to go see the body of Floyd Collins, the man that got trapped in sand caves. And that was a huge thing. I had read a couple of places. I didn't really get into putting it into my notes because I was a little rushed on my notes, but a couple of people had like tried to steal his body, like grave rob his body for their own attractions.
Like 3 times, I'm pretty sure. But one other thing that really stuck with me when I was touring Mammoth Caves the first time, the park ranger did mention that there was like speculation that like Floyd Collins probably would have died of exposure being in there 17 days, no matter what, like he taking that long. But they do estimate that a large part of why he might have died from exposure is because the people that were gathering outside and like making hot dogs and shit were like melting any snow in the area, and it was going down into the cave and making him more wet.
Yeah,
and more cold.
I had read that a few places, and I had also read that everyone being around just was slowing down people were getting in the way.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, though, if people hadn't flocked and made such a spectacle of it, like, would he have come out alive? Because rescuers would have been able to actually do their jobs.
I feel like he was able to get through. It was slightly unclear, but from what I understood, he had been able to get in but couldn't get out.
Right.
Like he had gotten through and then was trying to get back and couldn't get back or something. Mm-hmm. And there are pictures of him trapped in the cave. Skeets Miller had taken a picture of him trapped in the cave like a few days before he had died. And you can just see he is so worn and tired and exhausted.
Oh, that's
and it's so sad and depressing and also like really eerie. But yeah, it's a whole thing of like if people hadn't have flocked.
Yeah.
You know, on the one hand, it brought a lot of people that were cavers from other areas that could help. But on the other hand, there were people that were like trying to get into the caves to go talk to them that weren't reporters or weren't rescuers. And there were people like looking in the shaft that they were trying to dig down to reach him. And they were worried they had to like keep stopping to get people away so they wouldn't fall into it or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's frustrating.
But now he's now buried in the Mammoth Caves Baptist Church Cemetery, which we went to, and we saw his gravestone.
Yeah, we took a picture of it.
I'll try and remember to post it, but that was cool.
It was cool.
They had that.
I'm sad we didn't see Stephen Bishop's grave, because I didn't realize it was in another... I should have realized it was another cemetery within the park, but... We just, we had already gone to 2 cemeteries while we were there.
3.
We had gone to 3, yes. Yeah. And his wasn't at either, any of those. So we ended up not getting to see his. But we did get to see Floyd Collins' grave.
Yeah, that was cool. So this tragedy really pushed the Mammoth Cave National Park Association to seek approval in 1926 from Congress to create the National Park of Mammoth Caves. Because they're like, we need to protect this area. We need to keep anybody from getting hurt here. And they would eventually get their wish granted in 1941 when the park would become official. After Collins' death, the creation of the park, the cave wars slowly petered out. And the very final death rattles of the cave wars were in the 60s when the last of the cave cappers disappeared and a lot of the signs disappeared. And Mammoth Cave's park accrued a lot more of the land around it and a lot more of the privately owned parks, or not parks, caves like we had mentioned. So now all that's left of this war are some road signs nearby the caves, some graves that mark the last resting place of explorers that helped build what we know about the longest cave system in the world. And that is all I have about the Kentucky Cave Wars. Thoughts?
Absolutely wild. People suck.
People do suck. Don't go in exploring in caves if you don't know what you're doing or you're not with someone. Know your skills when you go into a cave. Know what you're getting into. Have 3 sources of light. Have plenty of food. Let someone know where you're going.
Yeah, and if you can't help someone else that is in a situation, get the fuck out of the way so people that do know what they're doing can actually help.
Also, don't be racist.
Yeah,
Don't be racist, don't break onto other people's properties for the sake of your gain.
Yeah. Basically, don't be shitty and don't do these specific crimes.
Don't be shitty, be safe. Go visit Mammoth Caves when they open up, back up, and take the tour. And if you want to, we had originally had tickets for the 3-hour extended historical tour. If you want to do that, or any of the, like, if you want your pick of the cave tours, plan your trip months in advance. Unfortunately, if you're like us and you plan months in advance, there is a good chance with our current people in power that the government will get shut down and you won't be able to do your tour. But plan ahead, then you can pick your tour and just go in general.
Yeah, go to your national parks.
Go to your national parks, support your park rangers, find where you can stay. There's cool stuff around it if you want more than just the national park.
Yeah.
But the national park itself is so cool. We were only there for like an afternoon and then a little bit of night and then the morning.
Yeah.
And I wish we'd have stayed so much longer. I
wish we would have got to go on the tour.
I wish we got to go on the tour, but there's so much that we had learned with our research of, oh, this cool place, it isn't just the caves, the stuff on the top, the historical sites. And even the parts, if you're claustrophobic and don't like caves, like the cave itself is really cavernous for most of it. If you just do a basic, simple tour, and even if you don't like being in caves, the land above it is just gorgeous and beautiful.
Yeah.
So go support your local parks. Or your national parks, your state parks. Mm-hmm. Go and talk to park rangers. Yeah. Ask them questions. They like that.
These places really do need your support because there's a lot of people that want to sell certain parts of our national parks to, like, people or corporations
for development or resources.
And that would like fucking destroy like ecosystems and just really important parts of this planet, and that would be really, really not good. Like, it's not just another piece of land. Like, these are not only like historical and cultural centers that are extremely important, but they're ecological centers
and also
really
scientific.
Important. Yeah, exactly. Like, they're important for so many things.
There's so much scientific stuff that could be lost if they were allowed to develop these.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're going to get into all the science stuff in your episode, but you had just pulled up an article earlier today about one of the national parks getting damaged and them not being able to repair it because of the shutdown.
Yeah. Which is super unfortunate. Yeah, they said, I think it was Great Bend and Death Valley, both of them
I thought it was Big Bend.
Yeah. Great. Is it?
Big Bend? I don't know.
Hold on, now I want to look it up.
Find it. You know what it is. I don't. But yeah, I think it was Monument Valley and Big Bend. I don't know. It was...
Oh, it is Big Bend.
Haha, I know things.
It is Big Bend, though. In Texas. Yeah, so apparently, it was Big Bend and Death Valley, I think, that suffered some damage somehow. And there's, like, nothing really that they can do, I guess, to repair it while the government shutdown is happening because they don't have funding
or
for
people,
repairs. Yeah,
since they're on bare bones.
So, and these are like the type of places that really do deserve to be supported out of everything that our government pays for. Like, these are really important.
Yeah, and park rangers do more than just welcome you into a space.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, they're just glorified, they're overly glorified. They're first responders, they're like law enforcement, they're scientists.
Yeah.
They're there to help keep you safe, they're there to give you information, they're there to learn about the area as well. Like, they're not just there to say, hi, welcome to Mammoth Caves.
They deal with the wildlife, they deal with ecological preservation, they do so much, and their jobs can be a lot harder than we realize.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them that are like out in the wilderness stationed in the wilderness for a long time.
I mean, geez Louise, go back and listen to our Spark Ranger episode. I mean, that man was a park ranger, and look what fucking happened to him on his job. So
some of that wasn't even on his job.
Park rangers.
Yeah, respect your park rangers, support your park rangers, support your parks. Listen to them because they probably know better than you.
Yeah, it's so true.
So I think that about wraps it up.
All right, you want me to do our outro?
Sure, do your outro.
My outro marks.
Outro marks.
I'm still cracking up from that. Like, I don't know if anyone else is going to find that as funny as I found that, but I was like editing the episode and I couldn't stop laughing when you said that.
Gotta do the outro marks. Is that just our thing now?
I guess so. All right. Thank you for listening. If you liked it, please rate the podcast and share it with the weird people in your life. Follow us on Instagram at whataboutweird.pod, where we often share pictures related to the episodes. We are also on Blue Sky at whataboutweirdpod.
About what about?
Please start the sentence over again.
Nope.
We are also on Blue Sky at whataboutweirdpod. If you have any topic suggestions or personal weird stories, please DM us or email us at whataboutweirdpod@gmail.com.
And always remember
to ask about the weird.
Bye for now.